All right, how's it going, everybody? I want to do a very, very short video on this subject because it still keeps popping up. And it's like um, what we're still talking about is consoles and outboard gear versus a DAW, the digital mixer in your DAW, and just plugins. Or basically working in the box, or more in the box versus it's really everything today in a nutshell when it comes to gear is just a choice and option. That's all it is now. It's a choice, an available option, and allows you to have choices on how you want to do what you want to do in your recording studio. A console is just a choice and an option. The choices of outboard gear, studio monitors, is choices and options. Using just your DAW and just using the plugins are just choices and options. There's always going to be the argument that analog and outboard gear and 2-inch tape machines is better. Then there's always going to be the argument that working in a box is better. Then there's going to be people out there that's going to be a mixture. No, I'd rather have a console. Some people, I don't want to have a console. Consoles are big and bulky, and they create a lot of heat, and they have to work, and it takes a lot of maintenance, and or whatever the case. There's always going to be the argument, always. But we keep bringing up. You have to keep bringing up because they're always going to where people can make videos where it's negative and look down to have a console because of all the cons that a console can bring. Then there's going to always be the argument of how the pros and a positive outlook because one, the console is the most eye candy in the control room is the console. It's the one piece of gear that when you see engineers sitting at a console, is that we're talking serious business here with this large format console. Not realizing there are a lot of options to get the same output. But even if you don't have a console, you can still get the same output. I maybe have to do a video on what a console is and what a console isn't. Maybe we ought to do a video like that. But you can get the same results with a few just microphone channel preamps going into your interface. That's really pretty much it. I don't know any other way to explain it or say it. Everything that we do musically, from the choices of microphones to studio monitors, consoles, outboard gear, plugins, DAWs, everything is choices and options. No matter how you decide to work. If you want a console, that's a choice and an option. If you don't want a console, that's a choice and an option. If you want to use outboard gear, that's a choice and an option. You want to use just the DAW and the digital mixer in your DAW, that's a choice and an option. You want to use just plugins, that's a choice and an option. You want to use a semi mixer. Do you want to be hybrid and use some outboard gear? Choice and an option. Do I want to use FET microphone? Do I want to use a tube microphone? That's a choice and an option. So you got people out here talking about, do you need a console? You don't need a console or whatever. Everything's just a choice and an option. If you want to go with console, if you want to use a Neve, do you want to use an API? Do you want to use an SSL? Do you want to use a Audient? Do you want to use a Helios? Do you want to use an MCI or Tascam or Sony or Yamaha? Don't want to use an analog console. Don't want to use a digital console. Choice and an option. You choose to use an analog console, then you got options of different brands of consoles. Or you want to just use the DAW, that's a choice. Your options is Pro Tools or Reaper or Ableton Live, Studio One, Cubase. Those are choices and options. That's all it is in this whole music recording studio game. Everything's a choice and an option. And the problem, and I'll end on this note, the problem that we're having, with so many people saying what's the best studio monitors or microphones or consoles or mic preamps or compressors or whatever, plugins or whatever it is, it becomes biased. Because everything, in other words, you can have one studio have a set of focal speaker monitors in it. Another studio can have a set of Yamaha in it. Another studio can have JBLs. Another studio can have Genelecs. Some studio can have Barefoots. Another studio can have ATCs. Some can have Dyne Audio. Some can have PMC Audio. Just the list goes on and on and on. But every one of those different types of studio monitors are choices and options. That's all it is. Whatever microphone you want to go with, that's your choice. And whatever brand you go with is the options for you to pick. Same thing with your interface. Same thing with the software. Same thing with outboard gear. And this is why we have so many options that give you choices. There's a lot of options versus only having one item or something where you got no choice. It's the only option. It's the only available option. But other than that, there's so many pieces of gear, so many ways to record, so many ways, to do it. Whether you have a console or no console, whether you have a desk, an Argosy desk, or you just have whatever. Choices, those are all those are the choices you have, and it gives you options to pick something that you think will work for you. That's all it is in this. That's why I want to make this video so short. That's all it is, and it amazes me we're still, like me, I choose to have a console because I just like working that way. There's no right or wrong way. Some people don't want a console. But you got the people that telling you don't need a console. And I'm like, okay. You got people that tell you out there why you should get a console. Okay. It's a choice. And if I decide to go to console, what are my options? Here are your options if you want a console. You got Audient, Neve, API, pick one. So it's the same thing we do when it comes to cars, or cameras, or houses, or relationships, or computers, and everything else in life. You got a lot of choices, which gives you a lot of options. Or there's a lot of options, which give you a lot of choices. One of the two. That's all it is in this. So the argument is now has become mute. When you start seeing these people making videos on pros and cons of gear, it's just choices and options. Because some people have success with certain gear, other people don't have no success for it at all. And there can be multiple reasons to why people have success. Could it be knowledge, experience? They didn't know what they were doing. That's why they don't like it. Or they knew all that they knew what they're doing. They have the experience and the knowledge, but their expectations of what they chose just wasn't what they thought it was. And that comes from lack of research. Is it beneficial? Would it work for me? That's why we're given a lot of options, and that's why we get a lot of choices. The more choices and the more options, the more overwhelming it can be. Because there are a lot of options and choices of so much out there, plugins and everything else. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great one.